everyone!
It's time for a new What We Read video.
That's right.
Again, this is where we talk about all the books or graphic novels or
that
manga, anything that we've recently read,
been
basically.
consumed. Yes.
I'm going to start by talking about 2 books in a series that I have talked about before on the channel. It's going to be a very quick set of books. We have Destined for an Early Grave and This Side of the Grave, which are the 4th and the 5th novels in the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost.
Very nice.
The starting premise of the series is that there is a half-human, half-vampire named Kat, and she is hunting down her deadbeat vampire dad because she wants to kill him, basically.
As one does.
And she crosses paths with a vampire bounty hunter named Bones, and the series basically shows the development of their romantic relationship, but also all the obstacles they face, whether together or individually. And the 4th and 5th books were so much fun. The 4th is probably one of my favorites just because I feel like we really get to spend a lot of quality time with Kat and Bones being together and, you know, doing things and tackling things together. The 5th book was fun too, but it also felt a little less personal than the rest, which you will only understand when you get to it. I don't want to really spoil the plots of any of them because they're all sort of interconnected, even though they're also very episodic. I will say that Janine Frost has consistently proven that she can make stories about the same couple interesting and different with every single book. They never have to face the same sort of problem, and in fact she is very good at referencing like things that they've already been through that have made them stronger, and the ways that that has changed how they relate to one another in the story, which I really like. It's also fun because she's constantly cycling through familiar faces in the story, so you get to see all of these other characters on the periphery and what's going on with them as well. So really fun. I also have been listening to the entire series on audiobook, and I have enjoyed all of them so far that in that particular format. The narrator is Tavia Gilbert, and I think she does a pretty great job, and she definitely keeps me hooked on the story, so having a lot of fun with that series as well. The other book that I want to talk about that I don't own yet is also in the series. It's called Devil in Disguise, and this is by Lisa Kleypas and is part of her Ravenel series. So our 2 characters are a widow, Lady Merritt Sterling, who runs her husband's shipping company, and a Scot named Keir McRae, who is a whiskey distiller.
Sure.
And they have an undeniable chemistry between them from the start, but then a secret gets revealed that sort of paints a target on Keir's back, and so the 2 of them are determined to keep each other safe. And it's that and their budding romance. So I really enjoyed this book. My experience with the Ravenel series has been overall positive, although I have loved some books more than others. It's been a hot minute since I really loved one of the books in the series, and this is probably one of my top reads from it. I just enjoyed so much the way that Merritt was portrayed as well as Keir. They're both very strong personalities, but you can tell right away that they care for each other and that they want the best for each other. And sometimes both of them are stubborn enough to decide what is best for the other person without really consulting the other person. But it was fun. This is like a mishmash of different tropes that Lisa Kleypas has used in her other romance novels, and I think it worked really well. The one problem I have with it is how it ends, and it's just one tiny detail really that bothered me. I don't think it will bother other readers, but for me I was just like, well, this didn't actually have to happen, but I guess it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna complain about it either, because obviously I want a happy ending, like, you know. I just think that it wasn't necessary to add this tiny detail to the happy ending. And if you want to know what it is, I'll tell you, but I'm not going to tell you here because that's spoilery. Suffice to say that it is a very typical romance happily ever after detail that often gets employed in stories, and sometimes it can feel, you know, organic, and other times, like now, I was kind of like, it didn't really have to happen, but okay, I guess we're fine. Still, overall, I will say Devil in Disguise was an absolute delight, especially because apart from the actual story and the characters and the romance being enjoyable, we also get cameos from a lot of other people, and it is so fun, so great. I had such a great time with it, so would highly recommend checking it out.
I have been, again, as is my wont, reading up on pretty strong female characters, I want to say, or at the very least, sort of just like, yeah, for whatever reason, I just have a lot of sort of like semi kind of female-driven, even queer-driven sort of like books. I'm going to start with Girl Town by Carolyn Nowak. A series of vignettes, semi-futuristic, you know, and it's a bunch of women, some of them queer, some of them not, just sort of living in this town post random future or whatever kind of thing. It explores sort of like different aspects of their lives. It's kind of like slice of semi-futuristic life.
Okay.
I want to say, and queer life at that. You know, all the ups and downs. And it's one of those stories where I feel like, you know, it's just it's just people being people, and in a world where sort of they need to sort of normalize how people are just people. You know what I mean? So that's why these stories sort of have a place, is that because this just they're going through the same problems, going through the same issues, heartbreak and loss and hope and finding love again maybe, and so it's a nice sort of collection of stories. It's just again, it's a very easy read. Spoiler warning slash content warning about personal robots.
Okay.
Super controversial. They make these in real life, but not as lifelike and as almost, artificially intelligent as the one in the story. But there were some touching moments with the personal robot.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
Tastefully done as well.
I will take your word for it.
So it's not just so there's that. Which leads me to my next read, Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Live. This one is by Jim Rugg. It's middle grade-ish.
Okay.
It's about a young girl who is kind of like living on the streets. And she's a skateboarder by day, but also a ninja forever.
How fun.
She's super strong. She's like a local superhero. It's a series of vignettes, again, of a day in the life of this little girl who is technically homeless, but also a superhero. It's the weirdest combination.
That is a weird combination.
Because she doesn't want for much, but she does kick a bunch of ass. So, okay, very well. Very, very obscure, I want to say. Endearing, if you're kind of into that. Our main character is written very, kind of well enough. She's not two-dimensional, which is ironic because she's a comic. See what I did there? Pops off the page, definitely. But yeah, a very obscure read. Like I wouldn't see like Netflix or like the Disney Channel picking this up anytime soon, going, this is our new heroine for the young. There's a lot of like, this is very, very niche, and rightfully so. Which leads me to a really, really great read as well. It's Luisa by Carol Morel, and translated into English from French, I think, by Mariko Tamaki.
Oh, nice.
It centers around Luisa, who is, I think, in her 30s. She's living in Paris or something like that. She has like this best friend who's sort of like making terrible commentary on her like life, and she's like, I just go through guys, and it's like not a thing, and she's had several lovers in the past, but nothing seems to stick until by some twisted like it's not even magical realism, because this is straight on like, what the hell just happened. Her 15-year-old self takes a bus to the city, runs away after a particularly sort of like bad traumatic day, where one of those angsty teenage moments where like, I can't anymore, to go to her aunt's flat, and ends up in the future with her. And now she's living in her aunt's flat. Her aunt had passed away, and it's revealed that whatever that this little girl had been running away from, well, not little, but this young girl had been running away from, is actually the same thing that she's also running away from as an adult. I don't want to give it away too much, but it's such a great read. For me, it was such a again, if you just get past the whole time travel-y, like how does, like if you get past the need to have exposition to explain the time loop, and just understand that this is a woman facing her younger self and the things that she thought she had sort of like put aside, and to have it come back screaming and raw in her face. And I think Mariko Tamaki did a great job of translating it. A lot of things get lost in translation, but the heart of this woman finding herself amidst the things that she had closed up in her heart and turned away from for the sake of society's norms. I mean, for those of you who are already picking up on what the society's norms are, and especially what her mother would think, etc., without giving away too much, because that is part of the reveal, and so as not to cheapen the pivotal moment of, oh, apparently this is who and what I am. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Which leads me to my last read, A Minute to Midnight by David Baldacci. It is book 2 in the Adley Pine series.
You finally finished.
I finally finished this thing, my gosh. I'm finally sort of breaking my reading slump after having read so many books in just the span of a few days. It all started, I think, when we went to the one spa.
We should go back to the
thing, and I just started reading out of nowhere, just sort of like hungry all year. Adley Pine is an FBI agent or some such. Very strong, very powerful woman. She witnessed the abduction of her sister, their twin sister, when they were young, and she has carried that scar with her for her whole life until recently. And she just wants to close that chapter of her life and figure out, well, who took my sister and killed her. Events in this particular second book inspired to reveal that not only has she been positioned to do some good in the world, but also that the mystery behind her sister has unraveled to an even larger mystery with more questions. I personally love the twist at the end of this book. It took me forever to get to it because I just couldn't ride like, you know, she was dealing with a potential serial killer, right? Because people were being murdered all over a certain town.
Sure.
We're supposed to get some R&R and find the mystery behind her sister. She had to solve a crime on the way. So it kind of lost me there. But finally, when we got to the end, I'm like, all right, that was a good payoff. In which case, I want to read the next couple of books because it's done. I think there are 4 books in the series, and it sort of ends there. So David Baldacci has done it again. Not my favorite David Baldacci series or book for that matter, but it's got his branding all over it, and I like it, and that's my departure from actual fantasy.
Fair enough. Fantasy and sci-fi, because I feel like you also read sci-fi.
That's right.
Alright, the next book I'm talking about is The Bright and Breaking Sea, which is by Chloe Neal. So this one is about Kit Brightling, who is a very talented and smart captain in Queen Charlotte's fleet. She's tasked to team up with Rian Grant, who is a Viscount and a veteran of the war, in order to rescue a captured spy who has been gathering intelligence on an enemy to the crown. And it was so fun. I think the beginning was a little slow for me, and I was almost concerned that I wasn't gonna like this as much as I'd hoped to, but it definitely picks up. I will say it uses a lot of the typical like fantasy tropes one might anticipate based on that synopsis, but it really worked for me because I like the character so much. Kit in particular is a fun character to read about. She initially gave off some Delilah Bard vibes, which is a Victoria Schwab reference for anyone who's wondering, but she definitely comes into her own and becomes someone else very quickly into the story, and I really like that a lot. I appreciated that there were a lot of shenanigans in this story. It was a good blend of like giving me characters that I did care about. While it wasn't a very strong personal connection, there was a connection, which is always a good thing. It also gave me a lot of like plot things to look forward to. Like there are all sorts of things that were like things that I love in my fantasy reads, and they put it all together in this one book, which was delightful to me. And obviously there is like a budding sort of something between Rian and Kit, which I was also a big fan of. And I'm just like here and I'm like, it's a very, 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 very slow burn. I don't like, this is genuinely more focused on the story than it is the romance, which granted, because the stakes are so high and this is like political, like, you know, maneuvering and a lot of like potential for war brewing, obviously those are bigger concerns than, you know, your feelings for someone else. But like I was like the entire time like, oh my gosh, please just give in already, just give in already. So it was really fun. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, and I do think that I might have enjoyed it a touch more if I'd read it, but I did find that the audio was well enough to listen to. Not exactly the narrator I would have chosen because she sounds a little older than I would have liked, but I did still enjoy it. I'm definitely going to be reading the second one because I do want to know how it all wraps up. I think it's only a 2-book series. I hope it's only a 2-book series because I feel like all of this could wrap up really quickly, but I'm definitely glad I finally got the chance to read this one. So the last part of this video is going to focus on a series. I am now up to date on the series. I have read the first 3 books that are out. This is a series that has been talked about online everywhere, so I'm just gonna share my 2 cents. It is the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So the books are From Blood and Ash, which is the first book, and then we have A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which is the second book, and the third book, which is The Crown of Gilded Bones. So the summary of this story, which I'm sure you might have already heard, but in case you haven't, it's about a young woman named Poppy, and from birth she's been marked to be the Maiden, a young woman who has to remain pure in all ways until the day of her ascension in order to be found worthy of the gods. But Poppy is a bit headstrong, and she would rather be fighting the evil that took her family from her alongside the guards and the other members of, you know, the kingdom that are doing so. But things sort of come to a head when she gets a new bodyguard named Hawk, and he sort of pushes her into questioning a lot of things about her role and what she wants, and it kind of makes her question everything she believed in and rocks the foundations of her world. And the series kind of goes on from there. I can't really talk to you about what happens in book 2 and 3 because it's major spoilers, but I will say I really enjoyed the series. I can see why it's not going to work for a lot of readers, especially if the readers are expecting more romance or more fantasy. This is like an actual blend of both, and it's written in a way that is a little fan servicey, because I do think a lot of it doesn't actually have to be in the story. A lot of it is just there because the author knows that fans will enjoy seeing it in the story. Here's the thing, I eat that stuff up. It's like reading fanfic, okay? You know what you're going in for, and if you get it, it's going to be a delightful experience, right? Yeah. So for me, like, I am having a fun time reading the series. For the strongest book in terms of plot for me is still the first one. I like that it is an introduction to the world and the characters, but it also has a very engaging story, and the beats in it are hit pretty well. I did like that a lot. The second book, on the other hand, the issue I had with it was that the first half of the story felt a little slow and it dragged on a little bit for me, but the second half was really good because things started picking up and more things started happening, you know. The third book is a contender for my favorite too, just because I feel like a lot of it is now, we've now sort of got all the pieces into play.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a few more that need to be like brought out, but like most of it is there. So now it's just a matter of like positioning and seeing what each person has to do or their role in the story. I know I'm talking in very vague terms, but this is just me trying to avoid spoiling the series for you, because I do think it is better to go into it not really knowing much, and also not, I feel like you should go into it and form your own opinion of the series. If you've read the first book and it wasn't really your cup of tea, you probably are not going to enjoy the rest of the books, because they are all very similar in terms of tone, in terms of how the story is told, in terms of, you know, the amount of like more fan appealing moments that occur in the series. A lot of that happens, and it isn't necessarily going to work for all readers. To me in particular, as someone who has enjoyed JLA's other works in the past, and as someone who doesn't mind those things, like, and who in fact will find them either really entertaining or just easy to shrug off, like the repetitiveness of some of the details of the story, for instance, or like some of the situations that the characters find themselves in, I was like mostly fine with it, because I'm like, I guess this is what I got to expect from this book. So overall, for me, the series is really enjoyable and fun, and I definitely foresee myself reading and enjoying the rest of the series too. But I don't think I can wholeheartedly be like, this is the best book ever, the way other fans have been about this series, because I actually think some of JLA's other works are a little stronger overall. But I guess we'll have to see, because this is not a finished series yet. Bottom line is, if the premise sounds interesting to you, try reading the first book. You'll be able to gauge from the first book whether the writing will work for you, or whether the characters or story are enough for you to keep continuing on with the series. Just go in knowing that there is definitely a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be in the book and is mostly fan service type stuff. Not in a bad way, just in a, it didn't really have to be in their way. But overall, very enjoyable, very fun. Glad I finally got to it.
Cool.
Alright, that brings us to the end of this particular What We Read video. We hope you enjoyed it. Thoughts, questions, comments about any of the books, leave us a comment down below. If you want more content from us, like, subscribe, check out our links, and we will see you guys in a new video soon. Bye!